Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast with your host, Kristen,
Nicole,
and Hannah. Come join our porch swing conversations.
filled with lots of faith, hope, and heart. Hey Postables, we are back with another episode, and today we will be recapping episodes 3 and 4 of the TV series, Soulmates and the Masterpiece. Soulmates premiered on May 4th, 2014.
Starring Amelia Ullerup as Marie, Grayson Holt as Sam, Della Reese as Cora Brandt, and Jerry Trimble as Hoke Carey. And Nicole, you have some fun facts about some of these cast members. You want to share them with us?
Yes, I do. Grayson Holt, he plays Jay on Chesapeake Shores. Amelia Ullerup, of course, plays Bree O'Brien on Chesapeake Shores. And Jerry Trimble plays Mark Hall on Chesapeake Shores. Now, Mark Hall was one of the guys that worked at Trace's record label on Chesapeake Shores, or was his manager. I can't remember which one, but such a fun connection.
Yeah, Chessies.
The Postables gain a new supervisor, Cora Brandt, who implements stricter policies and procedures as they try to track down clues that leads them to a ranch to deliver a love letter that can potentially change lives. However, as Oliver and Shane grow closer to unfolding their latest male mystery, things heat up between the two on the dance floor.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, Rita is inspired to pursue her love of writing, penning a new novel that Cora becomes captivated by.
Yes, she does.
Such a great synopsis for this episode.
Yeah.
It really tells us a lot about what's going to happen.
Yeah, it does. Pretty good. What did you think about this episode?
I really liked it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Great storyline.
I agree. It's my favorite of the TV series.
Yeah.
I really love Amelia Ullerup. She's one of my favorite Hallmark actresses. And also this episode kind of gives me some Heartland vibes.
Yeah.
With the ranch, you know?
Yep.
And I just like the good little nuggets sprinkled throughout, like, you know, the introduction to Rita's book and our introduction to Cora, who's the new supervisor. And of course, I love the parallel between the letter story and the Postables with, you know, Soulmates. So yeah, I like this one a lot too.
I do too. Yep. The episode, it opens with a young man. He's writing a letter while sitting by a river. And then an older man with a horse walks up and he's talking to him and he asks if he's sure that he wants to stir things up. And in my notes, I wrote, you know, what could that mean? What could he be stirring up? The young man says, if I don't try, I'll never know. And I don't want that hanging over me for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Really great first scene.
Yeah, I think I automatically just think like, oh, he did something that he regrets, or he's trying.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So that he won't regret it. So
yeah.
It's probably something important. Yeah.
Of course, we find out that there's a new branch supervisor, Cora Brandt.
Yes.
Rita wrote a book, Renita Hayweather, Frontier Duchess.
So great. Perfect.
Yes. I want to read that book, honestly.
Me too. I wonder if there's like fan fiction out there of someone who has put together, you know, kind of filled in some of the storylines in between what we get to hear throughout the episode.
SSB fan fiction writers, if you haven't written one, please get on the ball and do that because we would love to read it.
Yes, we would.
The letter, we find out that the address is severely water damaged and the postage stamp is damaged as well. It was sent from Evergreen, Colorado, or supposed to be sent from Evergreen, Colorado. It was written on ledger paper with a logo. We don't know what the logo is for at this time, but we will find out soon enough. The letter was addressed to a woman named Marie, and they were best friends and spent their summers together.
Yep.
After that, we see a time jump to when they were kids, and they're sitting outside their treehouse at the ranch, which was a really cute moment.
So cute.
And then they're doing their secret handshake, and then I guess they knock off the water bottle. And then there's another time jump. I love how they do the time jump, like with him jumping off the treehouse. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, that was really good.
We hear that Marie is headed to Baltimore for college at Johns Hopkins University.
She's got big plans.
Big plans in the medical field because, of course, Johns Hopkins is a big medical university. Back to the DLO, and the Postable is reading the letter. We hear that Marie is supposed to get married next Saturday, which was really soon.
Yeah, puts them on a strict timeline.
Yeah. The next thing we find out as Oliver is running out of the DLO, I guess he's late for something, but we don't know what it is yet. Shane, asks Rita what's going on, and Rita says that Oliver has choir on Thursdays and he dresses up a little nicer on Wednesdays. Which, as the series goes on, we kind of find out a little bit more about that, about his choir practices and his Windsor Wednesdays.
Yes.
Which is referring to the way he ties his ties.
The Windsor knot.
Marie got her PhD and now works for the World Health Organization in Geneva, and Sam owns the ranch.
Yeah, good for Sam.
Yeah.
Good for both of them. It's like amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did they ever, I guess it's a family ranch, so I'm guessing that Sam took over for maybe his father?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I don't think they ever really mention it.
They don't. Which it makes sense that he loves it so much if it is in his family.
Yeah. We find out where the letter came from and what the logo is of. The Star Lily Mountain Ranch. It's both a guest ranch and a working ranch that hosts corporate and family events.
Yes, just like Heartland.
Yeah, I love that. I love that how it's both a working ranch and a guest ranch. It's really beautiful too, just the location and all the fun stuff that they can do at the ranch. Working with horses and cattle, I think, is another thing they mentioned.
Have you ever been to a ranch like that before?
No, I have not, but I would love to go.
Yeah, same here. I think I'd have to get over my fear of horses first.
I'd love to learn how to ride a horse. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, maybe a trip to Montana.
Yeah.
Montana or one of those western U.S. states, Oklahoma, somewhere like that.
Yeah. Colorado.
Colorado, of course, yeah. In the scene with Shane and Oliver visiting the Star Lily Mountain Ranch, we meet the manager, Tom, and a man named Hoke Carey, who works there. A little while after that, we find out that Marie has a fiance. His name is Patrick.
Yeah.
Which kind of broke my heart. Like, oh no, is she moving on with someone else?
I know. It is a sad scene whenever she tells Sam.
Yeah, and he sees the ring. She's like, I should have told you.
Yeah. Do you feel like he was justified in getting upset with her? Because I guess I can see it both ways, as like she was kind of giving him some vibes that she still had feelings for him. But then on the other hand, it's like he shouldn't have assumed maybe and went for the kid Like you can't just go around kissing people, but of course they had a history together.
Yeah. That's
And
kind of
so,
hard
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
I can see it both ways too.
Yeah, I feel like she was kind of giving him the vibes that maybe she was still into him, and so he was just gonna shoot his shot and go in for the kiss,
Yeah.
and we see how that ended.
Yep. Sam, he wrote the letter 8 years ago, which is hard to believe.
I know, I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either. I think Rita even said, I can't believe this letter has been lost 8 years or something like that.
Yeah, that was so crazy.
One of the next scenes, we see Oliver meets someone on the streets of Denver. I wrote in my notes, who could it be and where are they going?
Yes.
Like, what was your first thought? First, I thought that it was his wife.
Yeah, yeah. And like now that we know who his wife is and like what she looks like, and now every time I watch that scene,
I think
yeah, she looks like Holly, doesn't she?
she does. And like, it looks like she has the same exact coat.
Yes, that red coat. I wonder if they did that on purpose. They had to have, right?
I don't know.
She looks just like Holly.
It was very clever the way they did that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the first time I watched it, I remember being, having this intrigue, but it's so funny to watch the gang kind of spy on him and they're
Yeah, we can talk about it a little later, but I love that scene. I have it written down.
I love it.
The next day, when they're all in the mailbox grill, we find out Oliver has been taking dance lessons, and the lady that he met on the street was his instructor, who was giving him an update on his dance partner, Louise, who's gone missing. And she ran into a high school sweetheart, fell in love, and eloped to Mexico. And I have it written down in my notes. We can talk about it a little bit later under funny moments. But Norman's line really cracked me up after Oliver mentions that Louise eloped to Mexico. Dr. Marie Moore, which is her job title, and she also has a son.
Yeah.
So we know that she has gotten married.
Yeah.
We don't know if she's still married, but we know that she had a little boy with her husband, who is unfortunately not Sam.
Right. Yep.
Shane, Oliver, Rita, and Norman, they decide to return the letter to Sam due to, I believe, insufficient postage is what they said.
Yes, they wiggle their way out of that.
Yep. When they return the letter to Sam, we see that he throws the letter in the fire. And I believe he just kind of thought of it as closure, is what he told Oliver.
Yeah. It's sad.
Yeah. Back to Renita Hayweather, Frontier Duchess. We find out that Rita unknowingly disguised her and Norman in her book as Renita and Mr. DeLorme.
So perfect.
Yes. So clever.
Yeah.
The man that came to Marie's home wasn't Patrick. It was her brother. And Marie had mentioned when they all met, or Marie had mentioned when she met with Shane and Oliver and Rita and Norman that he has always been the tallest in the family. Patrick left Marie and their son. She didn't mention how long it's been since he left, but that he did leave. And they just weren't right for each other, is what she said.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad.
Yeah, very sad. It's kind of bittersweet because then at this point you're like, oh, so maybe there is a chance.
Yeah. Sam and Marie reunite. And in the scene of their reunion, he tells her that he broke ground on the cabin the day she left for college and has worked on it every day since.
Yes. And it's so pretty too.
Yes.
Goodness.
The last major plot point for this episode is that Shane and Oliver begin their dance lessons.
Yay.
Do we want to get into our favorite scenes and lines?
Yes. Yeah. I have Cora reading Rita's book every
Yes,
single
all
time.
those scenes.
All of them. Yeah. Every single time she sat down to read them. And I had this question about Cora, and I need to, if anyone else knows, please let me know. But Cora in these 2 episodes, she will randomly show up. Like no one hears her come in, you know, they kind of get startled like when they turn around and she's just standing right there. And I know that Della Reese was in Touched by an Angel, and I've never seen that show, but I know that she plays an angel in that show. And so I'm wondering if this is kind of a callback to her, you know, previously playing an angel. And so, you know, that's why they don't notice whenever she shows up. She just kind of suddenly appears. So if
I'd love
anybody
to know
knows
that,
that, yeah, I would like to know, because I think that's so funny how she just will
Yeah.
randomly pop up and she'll start reading the book. And of course, we start seeing, you know, the scenes being played out from the book. It was so great. I love how they end up doing that. But
Yeah, I'd love to know that too. If anyone knows, just drop it in the comments of our video.
yes. Let's see. Finding out that Sam wrote the letter 8 years prior.
Yep.
That was a crazy moment. I loved
Mhm.
it. Of course, Shane and Rita and Norman following Oliver down the street and seeing him hug the mystery woman was so great. And the fact that Norman went along with it is kind of shocking.
Yeah, I have it written down under funny moments, but Shane says as Oliver walks out of the DLO, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And then Rita says, "We couldn't, could we?" Shane says, "It's highly inappropriate." And Rita says, "Out of the question." And then Shane says, "Norman, you in?" And then of course Norman says, "In what?"
He always gets roped into these things.
He's like, "In what?"
In what? And I love how the next day, I had this under my funny moments, but is when they're at the mailbox grill and they're all acting a little weird toward Oliver.
Yeah.
And then Rita just blurts out because
"You've taken on Oliver."
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's so funny.
Oliver's face in that moment, he's like, "No, how could you think?"
He's like, "How dare you accuse me of that?" So good.
And then I also loved his line from that same scene when they're talking about Louise. And I think this was when Oliver said that she had eloped to Mexico with, you know, her high school sweetheart. And Rita says something like, "Oh, that's sweet." And Oliver says, Louise is 85. I'm afraid she's not being rational when it comes to this man. I know for a fact she can't metabolize spicy food. We're all very worried.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
One of my favorite scenes that I have written down was Sam saving Marie from falling off the mountain, even though that kind of like was heart stopping.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that he saved her life.
Yeah.
But it really bugged me, her father, like when they got back. Like, shouldn't he be grateful that he saved her life instead of worrying about if she's on time? I mean,
yeah, you think he'd show a little bit more concern for his daughter.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is from Oliver, and he says, "True love desires more for the beloved than it desires for itself."
I love that line.
I do too.
That's a good one.
Shane and Oliver and Rita and Norman meeting with Marie, and then Oliver's speech to Marie when she's talking about how, you know, she's not sure if it will work out between her and Sam. And then, you know, he gives the "to everything there is a season" speech.
Yes. Yep. So good.
And then Marie says, "I married Patrick And then Shane says that Sam was your soulmate.
Yeah.
And it kind of, in a way, it reminds me of Shane and Oliver, but specifically Oliver because, you know, he married Holly, but Shane is his soulmate.
Exactly. Yeah. I wrote that down too. It's like the first thing I thought of when she said that, like, oh, that's totally, you know, Oliver and Shane.
Yeah. Sam and Marie's second reunion. So this was the reunion at the end. When they're looking at the cabin. I thought that was a beautiful moment. Just the cinematography and everything in that scene was beautiful.
I love that too. I did find it interesting though that she didn't notice it before because she was like almost looking, you know, she wasn't looking directly at it, but it was right there. It's like, oh, how could you miss that big cabin?
And of course the Postables scene, Sam and Marie reunite, and Rita is, you know, talking about, you know, love stories, and I believe this was after Norman had asked her a question. And then Shane chimes in and she says, there's a time to write love stories and there's a time to live your own.
Yeah.
And then Oliver chimes in after that and says, and a time to dance.
Yeah.
And the last favorite moment on my list is, of course, Shane and Oliver's first dance class.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I love Oliver's line to Shane when he's talking about how long she's, you know, made it without technology.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cute moment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Shane, you know, looking around, she's like, I can't do this. And he's like, yes, you can. He's like, give me your hand. And then he says, don't look down.
Aww.
And then they share their dance.
Yes. So sweet. I love how he's talking about needing a new dance partner, and Rita starts showing her dance moves.
I have that written down too. Yeah.
It's so funny. And Norman's just looking at her. He's just like, oh yeah, cool. Like he's not even bothered by it.
Yeah.
But of course, Oliver and Shane are like, what?
Yep.
And
I didn't mention it before, but one of my other favorite scenes was the moment that Oliver asks Shane to be his dance partner, and Shane says, why don't you just ask one of your friends or a neighbor or one of the nice ladies at your church? Oliver says, I don't want a nice lady. I want you. And then Shane says, oh. And Oliver's like, what I mean is that you and I have danced before and you're not entirely without grace. And Shane's like, oh, be still my heart.
Yeah, nice compliment there, Oliver.
Yeah.
Another favorite moment of mine was when the four Postables are in front of Marie's house, and it pans over to Norman, and he had climbed up the tree, and he's looking inside her house with the little telescope.
Yeah.
He's describing everything. I love that. And then when Rita realizes that her book is about her life.
Yeah. Just
like, oh,
you know, deer in headlights kind of look like, oh no, what have I done?
And she's like, okay, I got to get these books back now.
Yeah.
Also, I really love, of course, we know that Rita has a photographic memory, and she recites Sam's letter to Marie. And just that whole scene, I just feel so like calm in that moment. Like, I love Crystal's voice. I wish that she could read my mail to me. We should start a petition to have her record audiobooks.
Yes, that would be awesome.
I would listen to her reading books all day long.
I know. Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't write it in my notes, but I loved the look between her and Norman when Marie says, do you believe in soulmates?
Yeah, like, next on my list. Yeah, Norman's like, yes. It's so sweet. Rita's so like cute. Happily surprised. She's like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then I guess last on my list is when Marie meets up with Sam and he shows her the log cabin that he built. Yeah. And then they kiss.
You have any funny moments or lines that you want to share that we haven't already mentioned?
Yes. When Cora comes in and she's trying to pronounce McInerney, and
Yes,
she
I have that written down.
as Mac Nick and
Nick
Mac.
Nick and Mac.
And then she says, Norman Dorman, I like you. Don't blow
Don't
it.
blow it.
It's so good. I love her humor. She's just like
Yes.
straight up.
And
And
then
then,
her saying Rita Hayweather or
Hayward.
Hayworth. Sorry, Rita
Mhm.
Hayworth.
Yeah. She's like, no. Yeah, that was a famous actress from back in the day. Oh, also later on when Shane hears the phone ringing in the DL.
Yes, I have that written down.
And
She's like, what's that?
Yeah, she jumps up and screams. That is just so perfect.
Yes, she's like,
I don't know
"What's
how
that?"
Kristen Booth did not just crack up.
Oh,
So
goodness. Yeah, her reaction to that was like just that was delivered perfectly.
Yeah, that was priceless. And then of course Rita dancing at the mailbox crew. I think this is the first time that we see that she's like not a very good dancer, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have any funny moments?
Yes, I did. One of the first lines, I believe this was in the first scene when they're talking about Cora, I believe. No, sorry. They're talking about Teresa or Oliver's talking about Teresa, and he says something about how Teresa like reinvigorated him or something. And Shane says, reinvigorated? Are you saying the Oliver O'Toole I've known and worked with these past few weeks hasn't been vigorated? Of course, Cora's introduction to the DLO, which we just mentioned. Shane's comment when they're first opening the box with the books, like with Rita's book. And she says, whose is that? And what do they have against trees?
Yeah. That is the biggest book I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think Rita said it had like 700 and something pages.
Yes.
Or over 700 pages. The scene when Shane and Oliver and Rita and Norman are talking about the letter, and Cora says, forget the mystery, just solve it or shred it by the end of the day.
I could just feel Oliver's like
He's just like
heart rate rising. Like, what did she just say? Shred these letters?
I don't think so. Not in my DLO.
Yeah, shred is probably a bad word for him.
And then I believe this is right after Cora says that. Shane says, isn't she a little seasoned for this job? And then Rita says, well, she seems very committed.
Yeah, that's Shane's nice way of saying, is she old?
Yeah. Norman talking about his cousin that had to cancel her wedding that was planned during a conjugal visit and didn't factor in a lockdown, which I thought was kind of funny.
That is funny. He has the best cousin story.
Yeah. The scene when one of the scenes when they're reading the letter and Shane is talking about Sam and she says, if she doesn't want him, I'll take him. And then she looks at Rita and they just kind of, share a chuckle, share a laugh.
And that's kind of funny because it's
in Oliver's face too. It's like,
yeah. And it also kind of is the same as like with Holly. Like if she doesn't want him, I'll take him. Talking about Oliver, you know what I mean? It could be like a double entendre. Like
that's funny though. Yeah, the look on Oliver's face when she said that.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what we know now, that it was love at first sight for Oliver.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
The second to last funny moment I have on my list is Norman's comment when they're in the mailbox grill. And he says, maybe this is just one of those timeless stories of love that never dies. It just gets really old and heads south of the border.
Oh yeah, referencing Louise.
Yep. And then Shane reading part of Rita's book. Now, this was at the end of the episode. And, she's reading that one passage. And after she finishes reading it, she says, "Yep, nobody writes like this." Do we want to get into the lessons that we learned from the episode?
Yeah, we already mentioned all of them, but of course, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Also have everybody's love story is different. Sometimes they just take time. And then, of course, the Oliver quote, "True love desires more for the beloved than it desires for itself."
Yep. Which is talking about, selfless love, like, caring more about what's best for the other person than yourself.
Yeah.
And the last one I have on my list is "Don't look down."
Oh,
and
yeah.
we hear this later on in the series with Ramon and Oliver when they're at Montaldo's, and they're talking about how love is like dancing. Don't look down.
Yeah. That's good.
I guess we can get into the trivia now for this episode.
Yes, mine are really easy. I think you're going to get all of them. The first one is, what is the name of the ranch? Is it Lily Star Mountain Ranch, Lily Mountain Ranch, or Star Lily Mountain Ranch?
Star Lily Mountain Ranch.
Yes, ding, 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 ding. At what college did Marie get her PhD? Is it Princeton, Harvard, or Yale?
Yale.
Yale, yes, ding, 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 ding. And then last, in what year was the second flashback? And that's when they're teenagers. Is it 1995, 1998, or 1996?
1996.
Ding, ding, ding. I knew you would get these all right.
Hey. My first question is, what color is the pickup truck in the opening scene? A, white, B, red, C, blue, or D, black?
Blue.
Yeah. Yes. All right. What year is the flashback of Sam and Marie as kids? A, 1987, B, 1980, C, 1991, or D, 1985?
Oh man, I think it's 1987.
Yes.
Woo!
Good job. What did Marie say she was going to be when she grew up? A, an orthodontist, B, a dentist, C, a surgeon, or D, a microbiologist?
I think it's microbiologist.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it right. How many undergrads did Marie say Johns Hopkins accepts for her program? A, 20, B, 30, C, 10, or D, 15?
This one I don't know. I'm going to guess 10.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Good job.
Yay.
And that was my last question.
Awesome.
So now we are going to get into episode 4, The Masterpiece. It was released, or it premiered on May 11th, 2014.
Starring Zach Santiago as Ramon Rodriguez, Jeffrey Ballard as Danny Barrett, Paul McGillian as Henry Barrett, and Kate Corbett as Sarah, Danny's wife. And Nicole, you have some fun facts about these cast members as well.
Yes, I do. Paul McGillian, Henry Barrett, played the fake Pastor Frank on When Calls the Heart Season 2. Graham Brashear, his brother Will, played Caleb Dunbar on When Calls the Heart Seasons 1 and 2. And Kate Corbett, who plays Sarah in The Masterpiece, played Eve, Sam's assistant on Good Witch.
Nice.
The Postables hunt for clues to deliver a package from a son to his estranged father. while their tough as nails supervisor turns toward a new life chapter.
Mm. Okay, I like that synopsis.
I do too. Great synopsis.
Yeah. What did you think about this episode?
I loved it. It was one of my favorites in the TV series.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I like it so much is probably because it's got the art aspect, and I'm an artist myself, so a graphic designer. So I guess really loved the art aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's definitely a tough one to watch.
Yeah.
So sad, especially at the end.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was a hard scene, the very last. But yeah, I like this one too.
I do too. The opening scene, we see a shot of the New York City skyline, and then an apartment or a loft with artwork hanging up. And then it shows a young man who we, of course, know by now that he's an artist. Mm-hmm. He's writing a letter to go along with the package. We don't know what the letter says. We don't know what the package is at this time. But we see a young woman come in as he's finishing the letter and asks if he's, really going to do this and if he's told him. So we're assuming that it's his father from the synopsis. And I wrote in my notes, what does he need to tell his father?
Yeah.
And the young man says that he's not sure, that he, wants to mail it. And the young woman responds by saying that it's a risk and she doesn't want to see him get his heart broken again. Mm-hmm. So also, what could that mean? What could she be talking about? Why had he gotten his heart broken?
Yeah.
But I love how supportive she was in that moment of, him and whatever his decision would be.
Yeah.
The next scene, it cuts to the DLO and we see Oliver waiting by the Paris box. Heartbreaking.
I know.
And Shane asks something along the lines of, how long has this been going on? And Norman says a year. So, of course, by now, he's been waiting a year for his wife to come back.
Yeah.
And she never sent a forwarding address, which is one of the things Shane mentioned.
Yeah, I like how we get backstory, about Paris and Holly and what's going on there.
The letter is addressed to the young man's father, of course. The young man, we don't know his name yet either, but in the letter, he says that he realized at one point that he loved being his father's son, but that he would never be the son he wanted him to be. His father works at an auto repair shop and he owns it as well. Mm-hmm. And he dreams that one day his son will run the auto repair shop.
Yeah.
Kind of take over the family business. The young man has tried to reach out to his father, but there's been no answer. And he sent a gift, which is what we see in the opening scene, to prove that he finally made it. And when he mentions that in the letter, he says, "The best part of you lives in me, and the best part of both of us is my gift to you." And I wrote in my notes, what could that mean? What were your thoughts? What did you think that meant?
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I thought the both of us, who could he be talking about? Like, is there another family member that we don't know about that we haven't seen? I definitely wasn't thinking, a child or anything, but
yeah.
And
by the end of the letter, we know that the young man's name is Danny. Mm-hmm. One of the next scenes is when Shane and Oliver are at one of their dance classes, and we see Ramon.
Yes.
In his introduction, his first meeting with them. Yes. He is now their dance instructor because Madame Francesca lost the dance studio in a poker game. And Ramon's nickname for Madame Francesca is Francie Prancy.
Fancy Francie.
Sorry, yes. Fancy
Yeah.
Francie.
I know. That one's a tricky one.
Tongue twister.
Yeah.
The letter and gift was postmarked 3 years ago to Henry Barrett in Aurora, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the next scenes is Shane and Oliver going to his home, or what we think is his home. But of course, he's not home. So they talk to one of his neighbors across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And his neighbor tells them that he got cancer and he moved out of his house and into the room above Lenny's tap room. And he has a job as a janitor in an office building.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really sad to hear that he got cancer.
I know. I wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't either. The scene when Shane and Oliver find Henry at the bar or Lenny's tap room,
Mm-hmm.
we see the flashback of Danny and Henry. And Danny is now a teenager. He's, preparing to go off to college. And he's going to study art. And then that, heartbreaking scene of the fight that they have.
Yeah. Oh, I hate it.
Tore my heart
So
apart.
sad. I know. It's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. And Henry says that was 11 years ago.
Mm.
So the flashback showed 11 years ago.
Yeah. It's a lot of time to not be
Yeah.
talking to your dad or your son.
And I also wonder, considering what we find out later in the series about Oliver.
Yeah. That's a good thought. Yeah.
I wonder if he thought about that.
Right. That estrangement that they have.
Yeah. And I guess in a way it could kind of relate to Shane too. Shane, because she was estranged from her father.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the other flashback scenes we see is Sarah, and she's calling Henry to try to help Henry and his son reconnect.
Yeah.
And she tells him that she is his fiance, and Danny does not want to talk to him until he's made a name for himself.
Yeah, that's so sad.
Mm-hmm. This is also in the scene with Shane and Oliver talking to Henry. And Oliver tells Henry that he and Danny took the other's silence as more rejection.
That's tough.
Yeah. I wrote this in my favorite moments, but I love how Shane and Oliver are also trying to encourage Henry to reconnect with his son.
Yeah.
Going back to the Postable's research of, the letter and who it belongs to, Rita says that there are 167 Daniel or D.H. Barretts in the greater New York area and 200 Sarahs.
That is a lot.
A lot of Dannys and Sarahs.
Yes.
I feel like that's a common name.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. Especially in New York where there's tons of people.
Yeah. We see that the gift Danny sent was a painting, of course, which is kind of a given since he's an artist. Norman knows someone who works as a curator at a local art gallery. I love that whole scene.
Shane's getting so impatient. She's like, come on.
Norman!
Yeah.
In the scene when they're talking to the art gallery curator, she says that the artist is known for hiding symbols in his work, including his signature, and that the painting is not Danny's. It's a D.H. Rubric.
Yeah. That threw me off.
What were you? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, wait a second. That is,
Yeah, and Norman even said that something along the lines of, I can't see Danny lying about this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there was something that we
Something
don't know
about
yet.
Mm-hmm.
D.H. Rubricht was a very promising artist who exploded onto the New York art scene a while back, according to the art curator.
Mm-hmm.
The painting Danny sent is an example of his light work. And then the heartbreaking news is that Rubricht died in a loft fire 3 years ago, and a lot of his work was destroyed. Now, here is the really heartbreaking part. Rubricht was from Colorado, just like Danny, always put a mountain in his work somewhere. And after more research, we hear that Rubricht is Danny.
Danny. Yeah. It's so sad. And I think this is the first time that we
Have a
see
yeah.
a death in the show.
Yeah. The scene in the mailbox grill when Shane comes in, Oliver and Rita and Norman, they're already there. And Shane walks in with the painting.
Mm.
And I love that moment when Oliver says, "Did you just take the painting out of the DLO or something?"
Yeah. She just puts it under the table.
Yep.
Like, nope.
And Shane is talking about Danny's work, and she says that Danny never painted just one painting at a time. He always painted in groups of 3, or triptychs, as Oliver said.
Mm-hmm.
And every set of 3 told a story and had a theme. Example, caterpillar, cocoon, or butterfly, and then themes of life, love, death, and hope.
Mm-hmm.
The paintings were always shown together, and the first painting that Shane shows Oliver and Rita and Norman, it's a little boy and his father who's standing next to a car and holding his hand, but they're looking in opposite directions, which would describe Danny's past. The second painting is a young man and woman looking at each other, which we now know is Danny and Sarah, which is his present. And then the third painting is a young man and woman staring off in the distance at a child, which is Danny and Sarah with their child, and that represents his future.
Yeah.
So the painting was a birth announcement. So Henry has a grandchild.
Aww.
Which I thought that was a really sweet thing to find out.
Yeah. He definitely needed some kind of good news.
Yeah, a little bit of hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't remember when I first watched this episode if I noticed the picture of the child in there, but now that I know that it's there, like I see it, like it's so obvious, and I'm like, how do they not see that little kid right there?
Yeah. Daniel Henry Barrett married Sarah Ann Williams 5 years ago. Now this is when they're doing more research to try to find Sarah. Of course, Danny's father was or is Henry David Barrett. His mother is Judith Ellen Rubricht. And 10 months later, Sarah gave birth to a baby girl who we soon find out later on in the episode. Her name is Danielle.
Yeah.
And fun fact, a lot of the Postables probably already know this, and I didn't even know it until a few months after I first watched the episode. But Danielle is played by Kristen's daughter.
Yes, I thought
Finley.
that was so cool. That's so awesome. She was able to get her own daughter on the show.
Yeah.
So sweet. I bet she loved that.
Yes. Such a cute little girl.
Yeah, she is.
The loft fire was caused by a combination of turpentine and rags ignited by an old space heater, which is really sad.
Yeah, that's tragic.
Danielle is 2 years old now, and she lives with her mother in Saratoga Springs, New York. And then in that same scene where Shane and Oliver are talking to Henry, Oliver tells Henry that the last thing Danny painted was a message of hope, a way of saying everything that he taught him as a boy he used to learn how to become the best man he could be, the best artist he could be, and even someday the best father he could be. So Danny sent Henry a family, which this scene really
I know, it gets
made me
you.
cry.
I know.
The last major plot point for this episode is Oliver calling off the dance lessons with Shane.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking scene.
Heartbreaking. And I mean,
Oliver, yeah.
he
Oliver,
explains it, but
yeah.
he
I have
doesn't
it written down. Oliver says that he only intended to take a few lessons. His wife surprised him a few years before with a gift certificate for 10 lessons, and he believes it was his reluctance to take those classes that contributed to her overall dissatisfaction, and he hopes to dance with her in the event that she tires of Paris and returns to Denver.
I just wonder what Shane is feeling in this moment,
Heartbreak?
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely heartbreak.
Feeling like a little bit, like that was unfair of him to
Yeah,
do.
at the same time, I feel like it was really hard for Oliver too.
Yeah, and as we see in the very last, scene, it's a tough situation for him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you can tell that he didn't really want to do it, but he had to do it because he is a good and faithful man, and he wanted to stick by his vows.
Yes.
Until everything, of course, was, is resolved later on.
Right.
Do we want to get into some of our favorite scenes?
Yes. First one right off the bat is meeting Ramon for the first time at dance lessons. And he can't exactly remember how to pronounce Oliver's name.
Oliver.
I love it.
Yes.
And he flirts a little bit with Shane.
Yes.
Oliver's
face.
Oh yeah. He's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Ramon. He's great.
Yeah. The first we hear of Avalier.
I also love seeing Rita's book come to life.
Yes. I love all the Renita and Mr. DeLorme scenes.
Yes.
I think my favorite is the one when he's carrying her out, of the saloon, and then he dips her, and then they do that nose kiss, or Eskimo kiss, I guess is what it's called.
Yeah,
Really cute.
So cute. I bet they loved filming that.
Yes.
You can put on all the
costumes. I love the costumes too.
Yes, it's so cool. And of course, the reveal of the child in Danny's painting with the quote, "The best part of you lives in me, and the best part of both of us is my gift to you."
Yes.
His future being that Henry has a grandchild.
Yes.
And of course, Oliver and Shane dancing in the DLO too. And so it goes. Which of course we hear, throughout the series.
Yes.
And then Henry meeting Sarah and Danielle, via FaceTime or Skype, whatever that is. Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Yeah, the DLO scene. I was thinking to myself the first time I watched it that I was like, is it getting hot in here?
Yes. Woo, fan yourself.
So romantic.
Yeah.
And swoon worthy, I guess would be the right term. Just the looks and the dip.
Oh yeah.
You could tell that they were quickly falling in love.
Oh yeah.
You can see it in their eyes.
Yeah. How could they not be?
Yeah. Really sweet moment.
Oh yeah.
Another scene that I loved was Shane and Oliver at dance class, and Rita's voiceover as Shane is kind of watching him look out the window.
Yeah.
And this was after he kind of corrected himself about Paris versus New York, like he's talking about running away to Paris, and Shane's like, don't you mean New York? And he's like, yes, New York. And then it cuts to Rita's voiceover, and she says she searched his eyes for a sign, a look, a smile, anything that might convince her that his divided heart would break free of its prison. But it was clear that he was not yet free of the demons that pursued him. Not yet. Not today.
I love that. That's so good.
I do too, yeah. I love the parallel in that scene, like with the voiceover. I thought that was perfect.
Yeah.
Because that was definitely referencing Oliver's feelings as well.
Yes.
Norman reading the last page of Rita's book, and then Rita asking him not to read it. I love the passage that Norman reads from the book, and he says, as they floated over the Rockies aloft in their hot air balloon, the Duchess whispered a great truth into Mr. Delorme's expectant ear. Life is for the taking if you only have the courage to listen to the bidding of your heart, unless your heart is messing with you, in which case you really can't trust your heart at all. And then Rita says, wow, I didn't realize that was so deep.
Oh, yeah. And Cora reassures her. She's like,
yes, I love how Cora encourages her, and she says that she is magnificent.
Yes. Cora's redemption here. She's not as, grumpy as.
And that she put her whole heart into that book.
Yes. Lovely Rita.
Of course, I believe we already mentioned this, but Henry meeting Sarah and Danielle for the first time, and Sarah inviting him to come to Saratoga Springs. Rita and Norman in the Mailbox Grill as they're watching this online kind of Skype reunion happen.
Yeah.
And Rita says, real life really is so much better. And Norman says, I guess it depends on the life. Mine's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I love that he added that at the end.
Yeah. And then even though it was a heartbreaking scene, at the same time, I loved a few of the lines in Shane and Oliver's conversation in the Mailbox Grill when he says that she was a wonderful partner. And then he starts to walk off and she says, we were good together, weren't we? And then he says, we were.
Yes. I love that too.
Yeah.
In that moment, it was almost like his realization of he's back in reality. He's not living in this kind of quote unquote fairy tale of him and Shane dancing together. Because that's not the reality. He's not supposed to be dancing with Shane. He's supposed to be doing this, for Holly, for his wife.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like how it connects with reading about, love and stories and stuff, and his reality of that he's actually married and he can't, be falling in love with
someone
Shane.
else.
Yeah.
Even though he wants to.
Yeah.
What you said about how Oliver can't be with Shane because he's still with Holly, but he wants to be with Shane reminds me of one of the lyrics in And So It Goes, which is, Kristen, you have the lyrics pulled up?
Yes, it says, so I would choose to be with you. That's if the choice were mine to make.
Yes.
But you can make decisions too, and you can have this heart to break.
Yes. It fits that situation.
So fitting. Oh, yeah.
I think that is it for my favorite scenes. Do we want to talk about some of the funniest moments or lines from the episode that we haven't already mentioned?
Yes. I cackle whenever Shane starts playing the song that she
I wrote that down.
It's so funny. And then Oliver plays his, and they're both just terrible songs. I'm so glad they don't use either of those.
Yeah, I love how Rita and Norman and Shane are just kind of, dancing. And
yeah, they're
Oliver
just
like not amused at all.
Yes. So
and Oliver
funny.
says, as the song is playing, he says, when you agreed to fill in at my dance showcase, did I not make it clear that actual music is involved? This is what we'll be dancing to. And then Shane says, honestly, Oliver, sometimes I think I was put on this earth for the express purpose of dragging you into the 21st century. And then Oliver says, it is far too late in the day to discuss manifest destiny, Miss McInerney. And then Cora interrupts them.
Of course.
With her saying, Rita Hayworth, you're my hero. And then, going on to also say that she has a bestseller with her book. And Oliver says, Renita Hayweather, Frontier Duchess? And then Cora says, it's intoxicating. And Shane's like, oh, it's intoxicating and oddly familiar? Like Rita's face
Oh yeah.
When Shane said that was priceless.
I also love the moment whenever Norman climbs up
I
the
was about to
chute
say that. Yep.
and Rita, she's just like so impressed by this little
Yeah.
action. It's so funny.
Yeah. Rita
I
says Norman's very mechanical. He can take apart anything and put it back together, and he hardly has any leftover parts.
Uh-huh. The last one I have is after Cora lets Norman read the passage in Rita's book and asks, "How about them apples?" And
Yeah.
he says, "What apples?"
Yeah.
"It's you. Why don't you wake up and smell the yoo-hoo, honey?" She's saying what we're all thinking.
Yep. When Shane and Oliver and Rita and Norman are all, standing around the counter in the DLO, and Cora's, standing there or sitting there too. And Oliver says something, I can't remember what he said, but Cora responds and says something like, "I'd like some more time to get back to the Duchess, so keep it moving." Keep it moving.
Keep it moving. She's got to get back to the Duchess.
Another scene that really cracked me up was one of the moments when Cora was reading Rita's book, and Rita and Norman are just kind of standing off to the side, and Cora's talking to herself, and she says, "No, don't do that, Renita." And then she pauses, and then she's like, "She did it."
She did it. Oh man, I want to read this book so bad.
I do too. And then Rita responds to that to Norman. Like, she says this to Norman. She says, "All she ever does is read my book." Another line I really cracked up at was in an exchange between Oliver and Cora. And Cora says, "Go away and hurry."
Yes. Oliver's like, "Okay."
All right. The scene in the DLO after Shane and Oliver's dance that they had the night before. And, Shane and Oliver kind of almost run into each other, and Norman says, "Something's different." And then Shane says, "It's Cora. She's not here." And then Rita says, "Well, I hope she's okay." And then Oliver says, "I saw Miss Brandt down in Human Resources. She's retiring from the post office to, move on to other things."
Yes. So that's the exit of Della Reese as Cora Brandt.
Yes. Oh, and then Norman, after Oliver says that, he says, "I wrote my memoirs once. I don't remember where I put them."
Yeah, that's so funny. The irony.
I know. And Rita says, "Well, I bet they're fascinating."
No, Norman can do no wrong to her.
No. Do we want to get into the lessons that we learned from this episode?
Yeah, I just have two written down. I have the saddest words are those left unspoken. And then I have a good book can distract you for days.
That's a good one too, yeah. I don't have that one, but I do have the first one that you mentioned. And then I also have life is for the taking if you only have the courage to listen to the bidding of your heart.
That's a good one.
We have some trivia that we can get into now.
Yes.
It'll be fun.
You actually answered two of the ones that I have prepared. It's okay though. I'll still ask you. First one is, what is the name of the woman who was supposed to give Oliver and Shane lessons? Was it Madame Mary, Madame Olivia, or Madame Francesca?
Madame Francesca.
Ding, 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 ding.
Or Madame Francesca. Madame Francesca. No.
How many pages are in Renita's book?
Oh, goodness.
Okay. Is it 750, 770, or 780 pages?
I think it's 780.
Yes.
Yay.
Good job. That was a good one. And then what is the date that was Oliver and Holly's anniversary? Is it Friday the 22nd, Friday the 25th, or Friday the 24th?
Friday the 24th.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Good job.
Yay. I'm all right. My first question is, where did Danny fill out an application for college to study art? Savannah College of Art and Design, Columbia University, the Art Institute of Atlanta, or North Carolina State University?
Columbia.
Yes.
Yay.
How old was D.H. Rubricht, or Danny, when he died? A, 26 or 27, B, 30, C, 33, or D, 23?
A, 26 or 27.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't say specifically which one, but 26 or 27. Where did Shane say Danny and Sarah got married? A, Saratoga Springs, B, Denver, C, New York City, or D, Los Angeles?
Now, this one I don't remember. I know they were living in Saratoga Springs, but they might have got married in New York City. I'm just going to go with Saratoga Springs. No.
You had it right, New York City.
Oh, man. Should have went with that one.
It's okay. What did Oliver say Cora is retiring from the post office to do? A, become an artist, B, write her memoirs, C, travel the world, or D, become a doctor?
B, write her memoirs.
Yes.
Yes, she was inspired.
Yes. My last question is, what is one thing in view along with the calendar on Oliver's desk? A, a photo of him and his wife, B, his letter openers, C, a Rubik's Cube, or D, a coffee mug?
Oh, is it Rubik's Cube?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it right.
Those were so good.
Thanks. Okay, Postables. I think that wraps up our recap of Soulmates and the masterpiece. We will be back next week with a recap of The Edge of Forever and The Future Me. Thank you so much for listening. We love y'all. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.